Welcome back to class. Today is the second seminar in our Tranquility Meditation class. Our topic is Tranquility Meditation for the Relief of Pain and Suffering, the global topic for the seminar series. Today's main topic is dualist interactionism, the ontology of Tranquility Meditation. Now this will be a recurring theme. It is a recurring theme in all of my courses, because this is the basis for everything that we do. This is the core. This is the most important information that is available to us as human beings. And so it forms the core of everything that we do, particularly. So those in my hypnosis class and those in the history of philosophy class will have seen this material before. We'll look at it from a slightly different perspective today. But it's always good to review the main key points. Today our practicum will be exploring the interaction between mind and body. All right, all the course materials are available for download or review on the website. Currently, the website is just still open. Everything's on the front page. I'll show you that in just a second. By next Sunday, I'll have everything moved into its own page. So this seminar will have its own page, and it will be password protected. So TRNED seminar will be the user ID, all lowercase, and NKA fall semester 2012. Will be the password, and that's the password for all three of the seminars. And this is what if you haven't gone out there yet, this is what the website looks like. So it's just navigatealliance.org. Over here on the left, there will be a menu item for NKA seminars. And if you move the cursor over to that, there'll be the drop-down menu for the three seminars. And then just go there, and it'll prompt you for your password and everything. Welcome. Okay. So as of Sunday, that will be the way that it will be. Currently, like I said, everything is just sort of in a sequence. All the PDF files are there, and then the audio files for this course are also there. Let's see. I do not have the other item there, so I will download that today. Okay? So, like, for example, the last PDF file there is Tranquility Meditation, Seminar 2 PowerPoint presentation. That is the PowerPoint presentation from today. So that is now available. So all of the things will be segregated in their own page, and they'll be password protected as of Sunday. So just make certain that you have the password.
Could you flip that to the user
Sure.
IDs? I didn't get it all.
Sure. There you go. Oh, so there it is. TR Med Seminar, and the password is NKA Fall 2012. But, you got that? Everybody has that? Okay, well, hold on just a second.
So even if you wanted to look at this for in the spring, you still use the same password?
Yes, yeah, I usually leave everything out there, as long as you guys want it. Okay? Now, there is something at the top here are the syllabuses. Okay, so the Tranquility Meditation syllabus is currently the third item down there, and if you just double click on these, you'll bring up a separate page. And if you want to download it, just right click and save as. I'll show you how to do that. But you'll notice that here it has the password and the user ID, so you can download that and have a hard copy of the entire syllabus for the course. All right. So it contains all the dates that we're meeting, the password, the user ID. It contains seminar description, how we're basically going to organize everything, instructional objectives, pre-seminar outlines for all eight seminars, seminar materials that can be available, not for all of them, but these are the kinds of things that I may produce. Okay. So that's already out there. You can download that now and have all of this information for any of the courses. Now, if you wanted to download these files, basically all you have to do is just come over here, place the cursor over it, right-click, and it says, this is Google Chrome, but they're all very similar. Just say link as, and it will prompt you to put it where you want to on your hard drive. And then you can just save all of these out there and have your copy of these things. Okay? Any questions about that? And like I said, as I move forward with the editing and uploading of the seminar videos, they will be available out on YouTube, and you can just go out and watch them at your convenience.
I would assume since they're PDF that we could print off each copy that we want?
Yes, yeah, you can print. Yes, absolutely. All right. Scheduling note, the seminar will begin its normal weekly schedule from here. Next meeting, of course, is next Tuesday, October 2nd. We will have one more hiatus on November 6th, and I'll be sure to remind you of that. But between now and November 6th, it's just regular meetings every week. All right, let's review the first seminar. And the knowledge lecture from that seminar was psychophysiological coherence. And we were concerned with the neurophysiology of tranquility meditation, and meditation in general. Now, neurophysiological coherence, if we go back to the beginning of classical meditation, the Buddha's Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path set up the training schedule, the actual training on how to do this kind of stuff. And the reason why that particular set of instructions was structured the way that it was is because the Buddha believed correctly that suffering is caused by ignorance of the true nature of reality. So his particular program, which was his Noble Eightfold Path, was set up specifically to introduce us to the actual real nature of reality. And that's what we're trying to attempt to accomplish here in this class. And today I will outline for you the true nature of reality so that when you finally encounter it in your meditative practice, you'll understand what it is you're experiencing. Okay? We took a look at Dante's Inferno as well, a little bit later. And Dante suggested that suffering is caused by misplaced hope. Remember that famous quotation, abandon every hope, all you who enter here. And that was an instruction to those who were going to enter the underworld, who were going to enter hell. And the reason why he wanted to caution us about having misplaced hope while we were in a condition of hellish conditions, in a place of hellish conditions, is because hope will distract you from what you need to do in order to survive. Especially hope based on other people or other agencies or other actions. All right? Once you're in the middle of one of the 9 levels of hell, you're on your own. And that's basically the situation that he was trying to describe metaphorically of our life. But if you take a look at the Inferno, you will see that each of the 9 levels of hell corresponds to specific kinds of behaviors and specific kinds of activities and specific kinds of experiences that we have here. Okay? We also talked about soteriology, which is one of the branches of philosophy and the purpose of meditation. Soteriology is that branch of philosophy concerned with salvation. Salvation from hellish existence. And our first explanatory model was psychophysiological coherence. We took a look at brainwave states, which we will review again today. The psychophysiology of meditation, which we'll review in just a second. Heart rate variability, breathing rate and phase lock loops. And then we discovered the simplest method for achieving this psychophysiological coherent state. And everyone remembers what that is, right? Okay, well, we'll get there in just a second. Quick review of the 5 standard brainwave states. First, and the lowest brainwave state that we have, the lowest frequency, is about 0.5 to 3.5 hertz. The delta cycle, deep slow wave sleep, is when that occurs. The theta wave, 4 to 7 hertz, occurs when we dream. Notice that that is an inner-directed state. Alpha is 8 to 12 hertz. We have global synchronization of the entire central nervous system at this point. The entire brain is synchronized to that 8 to 12 cycles per second frequency, and that also is inner-directed. If we're in an alpha state, we have to be inner-directed. We have to remove a great deal of our attention from the external world and put it to the internal world. The beta frequency is what occurs when we are engaged in normal activities, walking around, driving, talking, eating, watching TV, whatever. Normal waking state, it is outer directed. And gamma is a high frequency, high energy state, 31 to 150 hertz. Again, we get a global synchronization of the central nervous system, and it is outer directed again. We're directed towards the external objects in the external world. This typically happens when we are engaged in some kind of high energy, fast moving, fast paced athletic activity. That's when it typically occurs. And those who are athletes will recognize this state. It's the zone. It's when everything else it just sort of fades away and we're just focused on what's going on there. And the body seems to respond automatically. We don't have to think about it. Yes.
Do you have equipment that measures these
No.
wave patterns?
Oh, patterns, yeah.
How do you know what state a person is in?
By what they're doing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. For example, now I mean we have the research facilities do of course have these electroencephalographs.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're millions of dollars. I mean they're
Right.
extremely expensive. Yeah, we're not talking tinker toy here. We're talking millions and millions of dollars. Yeah. Just yeah.
Well, Ted Williams batted for over 400.
Uh-huh.
And people ask him how he did that. He said, "I see the ball in slow motion."
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's gamma.
Yeah, that's the gamma state. Two things of his description that are important. Number one, everything slows down. Everything slows down. And number two, he could see the ball appeared to be, the size of a basketball, basically. And he could actually see the rotation of the ball as it came off of the pitcher's fingers.
Oh.
So he knew it was being pitched. Okay, so
Cheating.
these are the kinds of experiences that we get when we enter the gamma state. Okay?
I was just curious with us listening to you right now and you speaking, and it's out-directed, so it would be better?
Beta, yes, it would be a beta state, yes. Yeah, with the eyes open, typically it is a beta state. Unless you are watching television or a movie, in which case it's probably more along the lines of an alpha state. Okay, an eyes open alpha state. Because of the flicker rate and because of other things that they have incorporated in the signal. So. Okay, so these are the typical ways that we measure the overall frequency patterns of the nervous system. And this became available to us in 1926. Yeah.
Well, so the kids that are playing games or the adults that are playing games on their iPad or whatever,
Uh-huh.
what level are they? And then when you have an ADHD child in your classroom, what level do they function at mostly?
Okay.
I know that
Kind of a complex question. First part first. When we're taking a look at video games, again we're in that complex alpha state with the eyes open, because we may be externally focused, but the nervous system is actually entrained by the video itself to enter an alpha state. Okay, so there is a great deal of responsiveness from the nervous system to what is going on in the game. It appears real to the nervous system. What happens in the movie, what happens on TV, what happens in the video game is interpreted by the nervous system as if it were really happening. So our heart rate goes up, if we're engaged in fighting monsters or whatever. Our heart rate goes up, we'll sweat, we'll move around, we'll have physiological responses to the images on the screen. So it's a very complex kind of thing. There are, right now, this minute at the University of Texas, there are several hundred chimpanzees strapped in upright positions with their eyes held open, watching flicker rays. And we've been doing this for about 50 years. And all they do is they have the electrodes in their brains and they just watch to see what happens with the flicker rates. And once they've discovered something new, they then take that technology and give it to the people who are actually producing this stuff. And it then begins to impact us in the real world. The most recent movies that we see out there, especially the science fiction movies that are mostly digital compositing, CGI kinds of stuff, those things are pixel by pixel creations that have a specific function to create a specific effect in a specific time frame. Okay, $300 million for Avatar, for example. That's it cost that much because it took them 3.5 years, pixel by pixel, to create that thing. The storyline is basically just a way of getting us involved in the narrative so that the actual imagery itself, pixel by pixel, flicker rate and other things embedded in the signal, can then go out and manipulate the nervous system at a very deep level.
I have another question.
Yes.
On here you keep saying beta is the normal waking state, and you have said 2 or 3 times with the eyes open.
Yes.
What if in the middle of something I want to close my eyes and let me try to escape somewhere?
Alpha. You would enter an alpha state. There would be a predominance of alpha
Just
rhythms.
shutting your eyes shuts out the rest of the world.
Yes, shutting your eyes reduces the overhead on the nervous system by about 70%. So it automatically begins to initiate an alpha state. What happens is there are 3 or 4, they're not sure yet, 3 or 4 harmonic synchronizers inside the nervous system itself. And so what happens is they're constantly sending out the alpha wave. And when the eyes are closed, that means that the brain can now begin to synchronize to those emitters. Okay? So yeah, I mean, we get an alpha state just by closing our eyes. Yes?
Then this voluntary suspension of disbelief, when you forget that this is real when you're watching it. You're
Yes.
saying that's automatic,
Yes, that's automatic.
so it's not really voluntary, I mean, it just happens.
Well, Coleridge was talking about the response to a play. Okay, Coleridge specifically was talking about the psychological response to a play. And he spoke about that as a voluntary suspension of disbelief. In other words, we go in and we know it's a play at the beginning, but because we become involved in the narrative and because we become involved symbolically with the characters on stage, we voluntarily allow ourselves to go, we go to the theater and we know what we're going to have there. So that's what he was talking about. It's voluntary in that sense. Now, with today's modern technology, Coleridge may have changed that first word to involuntary suspension of disbelief. Because a play, just a play, just to go to one of the college plays, for example, is using old style technology to manipulate our emotions and our senses and everything else. Okay? With the new technology, like I said, hundreds of monkeys over 60 years provides a lot of data for them to play with. Yes?
And what stage would daydreaming come in? Because my
Alpha.
eyes are still-
Daydreaming is alpha. Remember that you're not seeing what your eyes are looking at.
That's true. Just
Exactly.
The brain just.
Exactly. So there's a shift. You're not processing. The eyes are open, but the visual cortex back here is processing differently. It's not processing the perceptual data from out there. It is processing instead the imaginary stuff that's going on. Yes, and it shifts. It actually shifts to other portions of the brain to process that visual image. Okay. So it's kind of complex, but we will learn how to move effortlessly in and out of those, any of these states. Because this is the key to what we're doing, as well as the key to pain and suffering relief, the relief of pain and suffering. This is what the old technologies, the old classical technologies, meditation, hypnosis, contemplation, were directed towards. They didn't know it, of course, because they didn't have the technology to look at the brain wave frequencies. Like I said, Hans Berger was the German doctor who invented the EEG. He published his first paper in 1926, and by 1928, everybody in the whole world was making EEG machines and measuring the EEG waves. Okay, the alpha rhythm was originally called the Berger wave because it was the most predominant wave that the primitive equipment could pick up. It was high voltage, slow frequency, very consistent, almost a sine wave. And the only thing you had to do to get the Berger wave to appear on the EEG oscilloscope was close your eyes. Big. Those 3 oscillators, or the 4 oscillators, like I said, we don't know yet. 3 or 4 oscillators would instantly begin to synchronize the rest of the nervous system, and it would show up on the EEG. Okay? So they called it the Berger wave originally, because it was the one that was most easily to differentiate. As the equipment got a little more sophisticated and as they did more and more research, they began to talk in these terms. These each have subdivisions, which we're not interested in. For research purposes, sometimes they subdivide these. Okay, yeah.
If it's inner directed and outer directed, is sleep then unconscious period?
Slow wave sleep is. The delta cycles
Is
Mhm.
unconscious?
is unconscious. Yeah, there is no awareness.
So the dreams are also come from the unconscious,
The dreams, yes. If we're talking classical.
rather than inner directed. They would be unconsciously dreamt.
No, if you remember your dreams, I mean, the dreams are available to us, so they're not unconsciously dreamt. We are aware of them. Okay, they do come from the unconscious, and we will talk about that a little bit later. Freud's conception of the unconscious mind was that it was a primitive form, a primitive aspect of human being, which had its own specific rules that created and generated these dream imageries, the dream symbolism. And he's correct, absolutely correct. It's like we validated all of that many, many times over. Yeah.
Is there any difference between unconscious and subconscious?
The only difference is that subconscious is less precise, less technical, and should never, ever be used. Never be used. Yeah, ever, under any circumstances.
What are you
Okay.
talking about? Sorry.
Subconscious,
How
the
could
concept
you-
of subconscious. Yeah, it is a popularization. It appeared in the popular press in the 1930s. It sort of entered into the popular vocabulary. It has no meaning.
How could you use the subconscious if it's subconscious?
Well, Freud, the psychodynamic method is to take a look at the symbolism. Because the message that the unconscious portions of our experience wish to communicate is embedded in that symbolism, in the dreams, or in the other communications that we receive from the unconscious mind. Okay? It's complex. It's very difficult. It takes years. It is not something one can just go out and do. It is something one has to study and follow religiously for several years. And then the symbolism of that person's unconscious mind becomes clear. And the communication pathways are open and it becomes easy. Psychoanalysis is the method that Freud developed. Like I said, it takes years. And if you want to be analyzed by a psychoanalyst, it will cost you several $100,000. So it's something that is not typically available to everybody out there simply because of the cost, not only the cost in money, but also the cost in time. Okay? The analytical, the 5 components of the Narrowgate Alliance program include psychoanalysis as its 4th component, because it's important that we understand what's going on at the unconscious. And so, I have offered seminars in psychoanalysis, and there are materials that are available that can help you begin to try to piece together what it is that your unconscious is trying to tell you. But like I said, it's very difficult, okay, because it is heavily encoded. Yeah.
What does hypnosis come into?
Hypnosis is, well, let me defray that for just a little while.
Okay.
Okay, I'll answer that question in just towards the end of the knowledge lecture, it will become clear, because we'll be able to put all of that together.
One other question.
Yeah.
If there is the unconscious, is there also the superconscious?
No. Okay.
That's very good.
Yeah. Again, these terms have entered into the popular lexicon, and they are without referent. They do not have a referent in the real world. So they don't mean anything. because of that, they mean everything. You can attribute any kind of meaning to these terms: subconscious, superconscious, cosmic consciousness, all of those kinds of things. Now, there is an experience that we can have in a meditative state that some people have attempted to describe as God consciousness, super consciousness, everything else. Yeah, but as far as an actual real entity,
Measurable.
well, measurable, it is measurable, but yeah, it is, I mean, it's measurable by us, by the instrument that we are. But its actual ontological status is unproven, okay, except through these technologies. So we don't want to, in other words, the literature out there is very confused, okay? And there's a lot of people out there writing stuff that they have no business writing because they don't even know what they're talking about. They have never had the experience and they're just parroting other things that they've read. Okay, you'll see a lot of that if you read a lot. You'll see a lot of it out there. A lot of them are simply paid to write. So they write. Okay, so Carlos Castaneda, for example, very famous, PhD, from UCLA, professor at UCLA. Okay, wrote some of the most best-selling books on, psycho, what are they're entheogens is what they're calling them now. Psychoactive chemicals that allow you to reach this God consciousness. Okay, so the very first book that he wrote, The Teachings of Don Juan, A Yaqui Way of Knowledge, was submitted for his master's thesis, and he got his master's. As a result of that, it became an international bestseller, made him a millionaire overnight. But it was all plagiarized. It was all phony. It was all false. And that came out almost immediately, but because it was such a big moneymaker, UCLA Press didn't really push it, and they published all of, 3 of his other books, even though they were all phony, even though they were all frauds, complete and total frauds. So you have to be careful when you're out there. You have to be really careful because it is rife with deliberate fraud, as in the case of Castaneda, as well as just misplaced, nonsense because the people simply do not know what they're talking about. So you have to be careful. Find out for yourself. Okay? Don't rely on other people's maps. Find out for yourself. Go there directly. Look at it directly. Experience it directly. Do not rely on anyone else's maps, not even the ones that I provide. All my maps are doing is telling you how to do it. So you can go see for yourself. Okay, any other questions before we continue? Okay. The psychophysiology, they began to take a closer look at exactly what was going on in the early 1970s, remember, because they had access to whole bunches of meditators at that point. And the 7 indicators of meditation that Dr. Wallace and Dr. Benson discovered were reduced oxygen consumption, reduced carbon dioxide elimination. So these two combined indicate a very huge reduction in metabolism. Reduced respiratory rate, again, a metabolic feature. Reduced heart rate, metabolism. Increased alpha rhythm and decreased beta. Reduced blood pressure and reduced muscular tension. So those are the 7 physiological indicators of a meditative state that can be measured in the laboratory. Heart rate variability, remember, the reason we're interested in it is because it is the core of these physiological changes. When heart rate variability is modified through the breathing process, through the slowing down, through the meditative process, what happens is that every time we inhale, that stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, the part that causes the heart to beat faster, and every time we exhale, it decreases the heart rate, parasympathetic nervous system, and impacts the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, normally what happens is because we're out there in the real world, juggling 1,000 different things, the sympathetic nervous system is overstimulated. So heart rate variability decreases. Blood pressure goes up, heart rate goes up, all these other physiological indicators. And the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems get out of balance. And that leads to all of the difficulties that we face, stroke, heart attack, those kinds of things happen because the autonomic nervous system is unbalanced. So we're interested in this from a physiological perspective because meditation rebalances the autonomic nervous system, reestablishes high heart rate variability, and creates this psychophysiological coherent state that we experience as meditation. All right, so heart rate variability is the total difference between the inhalation and the exhalation heart rate. So if you're just listening to someone's heart, when they breathe in, it will go faster. It beats faster. When they breathe out, it beats slower. And that's because the two parts of the autonomic nervous system are being activated at different times. Okay? Greater heart rate variability equals greater health. As heart rate variability approaches 0, heart attack is imminent. If it goes to 0, heart attack is instant. It just all of a sudden it loses its rhythm and we get this massive kind of afibrillation, defibrillation, everything just falls off the wall and people have a heart attack. Okay, this is the primary cause of heart attacks, not cholesterol. Okay, so
On
yeah.
your best ratio,
Best ratio,
I got a little confused what you were trying to say. Is the 3 for exhalation and the 1 for inhalation when
Yes.
you're doing that comparison?
yes.
Okay,
So the exhalation should be 3 times longer than the inhalation.
that's what I thought.
Okay? And that will reestablish the normal balance. And that's what we find in meditation. That advanced meditators have that 3-to-1 ratio in their breath. Rhythm.
So the 0 HRV, would that occur when somebody does not exercise?
Yeah, because that also, as we exercise, when we go out and exercise, doing aerobic exercise or cardiovascular exercise, the heart rate now expands its variability. We're now pushing it up to 160, 170, 180 beats a minute, and then dropping it back down, and then pushing it up, dropping it back down. So the variability becomes very large. Okay, and that reestablishes the variability, especially at the upper end. Okay, and so that helps maintain cardiovascular health as well. However, if we push ourselves too far and don't get enough sleep, then again we have too much sympathetic nervous system input to the heart, and that reduces heart rate variability at its normal rate. So we're just hanging out. So what will happen is, once they discovered this, and this is all research that happened in the early 1980s, and it was because the technology became so much more precise, and we could hook computers to the old ECG machine, and they could actually detect wave patterns that were behind. They do Fourier analyses on the heart rate rhythm, and they could see all of these other patterns that were there, behind the scenes, and this was one of them. And so now, if they think you're having a heart attack, they can just hook up the ECG, ask it for the heart rate variability, it'll tell them and they'll know. They'll know instantly whether a heart attack is getting ready to happen. And so, if you're in the emergency room or if you're in the hospital, they'll constantly monitor that because it'll tell them, it'll give them forewarning that a heart attack is coming as the heart rate variability grows. Okay? So, the key point here is that we need to rebalance the autonomic nervous system, and the way to do that is to increase the exhalation time ratio, back to 3-to-1. And that happens automatically in meditation, which is why we get all the physiological changes, which is why we get all of the physiological benefits. Reduced blood pressure, reduced stress, reduced all of these other kinds of things. Because of this, because it is targeting heart rate variability. Okay, breathing rate and phase lock loops. We do not directly control the heart rate. We do not directly control the brainwave rhythms. Okay, the only thing we can directly control is the breathing rhythm. We can control that. We can change that.
Which?
The breathing rhythm. Okay, so because that's the only thing we have control over, we use that to regulate the other two. Change the breathing rhythm, and the other two will automatically begin to synchronize. When it drops below 6 breaths a minute, we start to get the synchronization effect. When it drops below to 3 breaths a minute, That's one breath every 20 seconds. Then we get this physiological coherence. So the meditative state itself is physiologically very simple. Drop the breathing rate to 3 breaths a minute with an exhalation time of 15 seconds and an inhalation time of 5 seconds, and voila, you have a meditative state. High alpha, high heart rate variability, low metabolism. Okay, and that automatically gets us into the meditative state, this mystical meditative state. All right, it's physiological, and it's numerical. It's like all we have to do is drop the breathing rate down to 3 breaths a minute and maintain it for 20 minutes, and instantly we're there. So we don't have to worry about any mystical kinds of things here. All we have to do is just control the breath rate. Very simple and direct. All right, so what is the simplest method for achieving this breathing rate? Humming.
Humming,
Humming.
oh yeah.
Okay, remember, if we hum, automatically we'll begin to establish that ratio. It automatically begins to slow down the exhalation, and it drives the entire system down to that 3 breaths a minute within a very short time. So this is the foundation for the mantra meditation. This is the foundation for transcendental meditation, which was a form of mantra meditation. Yeah.
Do you have to carry a tune, or is it just sound?
The research indicates that 130 cycles per second, which is an A below middle C, seems to have the best physiologically coherent effect.
So you just have to
Yeah,
produce sound.
exactly. So yeah, but as far as the breathing rhythm goes, any kind of, you can hum along to your favorite music, and you'll get that same effect. As long as the breathing rhythm drops to 3 breaths per minute, as long as every breath takes 20 seconds, and as long as the ratio is 15 seconds for the exhalation, the humming, and 5 seconds for the inhalation. Okay? We'll automatically get that physiological coherence, we'll automatically get the alpha effect, we'll automatically get all of these things. Now, if you go out and take a look at the patents that have been filed to try to create this, there's whole bunches of them out there, and everybody's, because it's a patent, they're trying to find these really exotic ways of maintaining this rhythm. It's kind of funny to look at. When the simplest way, the oldest way, is simply to hum. And that's all we need to do, and we will establish this. Okay, any other questions? All right, so our operational definition of meditation is a respiration rate of 3 breaths a minute, a respiration rhythm ratio of 3 to 1, a 15-second exhalation and a 5-second inhalation, heart rate less than 60 beats a minute, EEG right around 10 cycles per second, okay, and resonant breathing, humming, effortlessly achieves these goals very rapidly without even thinking about it. All right, any discussion or questions about it? All right, so now to lecture, the knowledge lecture for today. We need to take a look at the brief history of all of this stuff. What is it that is really going on? All right, why is this so important? Why has this been the single, the only source of investigation for Western and Eastern thought for thousands and thousands and thousands of years? Okay? And finally, we'll take a look at tranquility meditation and what is currently being called dualist interactions. Okay, like I said, those of you who are in the philosophy, or either the philosophy or hypnosis class, this will be a little bit of review, which is a good idea because this is a complex subject. Okay, brief history of the philosophical and scientific investigation of experience, which is what we're dealing with. Highlights of Western and Eastern philosophy and science. Okay, recall that this all started way back, 6,000 BC or so. Earlier than that, but that's as far back as our records, as our public records go. There may be private records that go back further than that, but our public records go back to 6,000 BCE, so 8,000 years ago. We have a clear record. All right, and the ancient mystery religions, we have clear indications of them, we have documents from them, dating back to about 2500 BC that are clear, that are complete. We have them from the Mesopotamians, from the Babylonians, from the Sumerians, from the Egyptians, from the Greeks, from the Iranians, the Persians. We have them from all over this area there, and they're all the same. They're all exactly the same. They're all identical. They all believe these things. Human souls are immortal and divine. There's a transmigration of these immortal souls. Reincarnation. There are secret initiation rites that introduces the initiate to this process. There are rigorous training programs, including somatic exercises, calisthenics, gymnastics, meditation, yoga, all of those kinds of things. Meditation and hypnosis specifically to achieve these states. Their primary myths involve travel to and from the underworld to gain useful information and experience. They practice death, traveling to and from the underworld. All of those myths, that's what they're talking about. Okay, it's not a journey you can take with your physical body and then come back. This is a journey that is taken by the soul. All right, it leaves the body, it travels to the underworld, it comes back. Practicing death. This is a key element. So this is what the people are doing. This is what our ancestors were doing thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. Now, if we come to the Greeks are going to systematize this, and they're going to publish it in a non-secret way that is then made available to everybody. Okay, so Plato's theory of the forms, he talks about two distinct but interacting dimensions. He talks about an ideal dimension composed of forms, what he called ideas, all right, which he called the world of being. So they're making a distinction between being and becoming. All right, the world out there, that thing out there, it changes. It's constantly doing different things. It's constantly evolving and it's constantly changing. That is the world of becoming. The world of being is the internal world, the world of the soul. Constant, unitary, ageless. Okay, and then there's the real dimension composed of matter, the world of becoming out there. And then here are some references if you wanted to go read what Plato had to say about this. All right, and so they're talking there. Plato is an initiate. He's a high initiate. He's an epopt of the Eleusinian mysteries. He practices meditation. He practices hypnosis. He's been initiated using the secret initiation rites. He practices death constantly. He travels to and from, the underworld constantly, every single day, in order to come up with his descriptions of reality. So the description of reality, from as far back as we can go, is dualistic. There are two elements to it. And the transition between those two places, between those two dimensions of reality, is achieved by hypnosis and meditation. Okay? Now, in the Phaedo, he has the character Socrates, who is just about to be executed, talk about death. And he has, there are several people there who are there, just discussing this before his execution. Two of whom are about 15 or 16 years old. So these are some young students of Plato's who are also students of Socrates. And they're asking him questions. Aren't you afraid? You seem to be pretty calm about this. You're going to drink the hemlock in 20 minutes and it's going to kill you. But you seem to be pretty calm about this. Aren't you afraid? He said, no, I'm not afraid. And they say, why not? And he says, well, there's only two possibilities here. Number one, everything ends. Okay, and that would be fine. Because I'm 70 years old, I'm starting to, get age. I'm starting to feel my age. I'm starting to, be prone to disease. And I said, I'd rather go out now and just have all the pain and suffering in. That'd be okay. He said the other option, of course, is that I continue. That the death of the body itself will not in any way interrupt my existence. Okay? And so the kids say, yeah, that's what we heard, in Sunday school. But there's no proof of that. It's an old wives' tale as far as we're concerned. There's absolutely no proof of that. Okay, can you offer us a proof of that? And so then Socrates goes off on some philosophical proofs of the existence of the soul. And the kids say, no, that's still old wives' tales. You're just telling us tales in church. We want proof. Absolute, total, incontrovertible, demonstrable proof. And finally he says, okay. He's walking into this corner here. And he said, I'll tell you the secret. The philosopher practices death. He said, Plato will teach you. He will teach you exactly how to practice death. He said, the reason I'm not afraid is because I already know what's over there. I've been over there every day of my life since I was initiated. I know it as well as I know the streets of Athens. I know the people there. I know the geography there. I'm comfortable there. I'm happy there. So, you know, and you'll learn how to do that as well. Practice death. Okay? Detachment from material objects through relaxation and exploration of forms is the philosophical method of investigating this other dimension. Meditation, contemplation, what we now call out-of-body experience, or what the New Agers are calling astral projection. Okay, these are all descriptions of this same process, and it is all related back to the ancient mystery religions' mythology about traveling to the underworld. What they're using as a mythological description is this practice of contemplation and meditation of separating these two things, the soul and the body, and traveling and gaining knowledge and information. Closely guarded secret up until Plato. Punishable by death, torture and death, if you reveal these secrets. If you reveal the method, you would be killed, because they wanted to keep it very close. They wanted to keep it close to their to the inner circle. Plato, basically broke his oath and published all of this stuff. All right, if we, go from Greece up to India, we take a look at the Buddha. And he talks about two distinct but interlocking dimensions. Maya, the world of illusion, suffering and chaos, that place out there. Okay, and Nirvana, the world of enlightenment, joy, and peace, the place where the soul resides. Okay, he talked about detachment and the meditative absorptions. He said there are 8 meditative absorptions, different distances from that world of chaos out there that we can achieve by meditation. All right, and he described those. Why 8? Why not 7? Why not 9? Why not 3? Why not 5? Okay, because the Buddha followed what is called an Agnolotic tradition based upon 8. It's a mystical tradition. He could have selected any of the others, but he liked 8. And it was the tradition in which he was most comfortable and what he was trained to do. So that's why 8. That's why there are the Noble Eightfold Path. That's why there are the 8 absorptions. Not because, there couldn't be 9 or 7 or 3 or whatever, but because he wanted them to be 8, and so he made the system conform to the Agnolotic tradition. Okay, and it works. It works pretty good. So his description. The first absorption is the elimination of unwholesome thoughts and feelings, and the production of joy and bliss. Okay, so this is fairly achievable fairly quickly. By practicing the resonant breathing every day for about, 2 weeks, 20 minutes a day, you will achieve the first absorption. It's really easy to get this far. Okay, now one of the things that happens here is that pain and suffering begins to diminish, and they begin to be replaced by feelings of joy and bliss. Automatic. Again, this is an automatic process. We don't have to really worry about it. All we have to do is just for 20 minutes a day, practice the resonant breathing. That's all we have to do. And this first absorption will automatically occur. Each one of these is an automatic sequence. It automatically happens. We don't have to will it. We don't have to do anything except just practice. The second absorption and elimination of applied and sustained thought. The absence of discursive thought, that internal dialogue, and the production of rapture. So here we're getting a little bit further away from the world of chaos out there, and we're now feeling rapture, and there is no discursive thought. The internal dialogue stops. Everything is quiet. Okay? This is fairly easy to get to as well, and you'll achieve that probably by the end of the course, if you were to practice every day. That's really fairly simple and straightforward. The third absorption is the fading away of rapture and the production of equanimity and mindfulness. This is a little more difficult, okay, and a little further down the road, but still achievable within the 5 weeks we have left. And finally, the fourth absorption is disappearance of pleasure and pain. The person meditating dwells in neither pain nor pleasure, this realm of neither pain nor pleasure, okay? So there's no joy and there's no bliss and there's no rapture, but there's also no pain. Okay? Mind and body fallen off. There is no experience of mind and body. They're completely different. And it is just the consciousness sort of hanging out by itself at this point. This is the end of tranquility meditation. So the first 4 absorptions are tranquility meditation exercises. All right? Then we have the last 4, which now put us into these sort of, mystical realms. And this is now we're turning into insight meditation. 5th absorption, he described it as the base of boundless space. The 6th was the base of boundless consciousness. The 7th was the base of nothingness. And the 8th was the base of neither perception or non-perception. So here he's having a difficult time describing. The first 3 were fairly easy to describe because they're closer to our normal everyday existence. But these 4 are, these 4 are dependent, of course, on the first 4. So you're never going to get to these until mind and body are fallen off. And then you just sequentially go through these. Okay? This will take time to get to that. All right, Aristotle also talked about, we're going back to Greece now, he also talked about 2 distinct elements of reality, a non-material substance called the soul, psyche, okay? Psyche, psyche is Greek for soul, okay? Psychology is the study of the soul, all right? Material substance, objects of perception, all that stuff out there. And if you wanted to read that, he has a very short description of this concept in his book, De Anima, which translates as concerning the soul. All of these materials are available online. You can just go out and do a Google search for De Anima, and you'll find whole bunches of PDF files to download and take a look at. Okay? All of this stuff is not copyrighted anymore. It's been translated for 300 years, and so it's easy to find. All of the Platonic dialogues, all of the stuff from Aristotle. So you can go out and find these very easily. All right? If we fast forward a little bit to René Descartes, he is going to provide us with a map. He's going to provide us with a language that will help us to clarify what all of these other people have been talking about. He said, okay, people who practice these kinds of things encounter the real nature of reality. And that real nature of reality is composed of these 2 independent substances, these 2 independent dimensions, completely independent from one another. And he called one of them res extensa, which is Latin for extended things. That. Okay? Objects extended in 4-dimensional space-time. And res cogitans, thinking or experiencing things. Us. That's what we are. That's what the soul is. Okay? Non-extended, non-temporal consciousness. So he said there are these 2, our experience up to this point, using meditation and hypnosis and all these other things, because that's what they're all doing. Everybody who talks about this is practicing meditation, hypnosis, yoga, tai chi, all of these things. They do not come to this without practicing those techniques. You'll never achieve this understanding of reality by watching TV. Okay? Never happen. You have to practice the meditation, you have to practice the hypnosis, you have to do the things that the ancients were doing. Because that's what gets us to the place where we can actually see this stuff happen, where we can actually experience it. Okay? And so he's saying now we're at a position where we can begin to describe this a little more precisely. Remember that he was a geometer. He invented geometry, he invented Cartesian coordinates, he invented calculus. Okay, independent of Newton. Okay. Oh, that's okay. Yeah. And so, this is the beginning of the Enlightenment. This is the beginning of the scientific revolution, right here. And so he's the beginning of modern philosophy and modern psychology. The meditational method, his meditational method, was, he called it methodical skepticism. He said, I can now accomplish the same kind of analysis that I have learned to do by meditating. I can do it with my eyes open, because I can actually now take a look at these 2 substances as they interact. And he said the way to do that is by taking a look at all of those extended objects out there and recognizing that I may not be looking at what I think I'm looking at. I could be mistaken. Yeah, I could be deceived. Okay? I could be tired. Okay? So I'll look at everything and I'll see if I can doubt its existence. And if I can doubt its existence, then I know that it's part of that thing out there, part of the extended world. And as I continue to doubt everything that I encounter in the extended world, pretty soon I will end up with that one indubitable thing, that one thing I cannot doubt. And that is me. That is this. So over the course of 7 years, he practiced his meditative method and ultimately changed the way that he perceived the universe. Okay, building upon the ancient meditative practices, he developed this new method, this eyes-open method out in the real world. Okay? He called it methodical skepticism. He describes it in the Discourse on Method, very short, relatively short, okay, for him. And he describes the method. It's very easy to read. It's very easy to read. He was the first of the people to write in French so that everybody could understand it rather than in Latin, which would have been reserved for those people who were academics. So he said everybody needs to understand this, so he wrote in French. So it's very easy to read, very easy to translate into English, so it's easy for us to understand. And it's autobiographical. I mean, he just tells us how he developed the method and how you apply it. Okay, and then in the Passions of the Soul, he outlines the res extensa and the res cogitata. The two substances, the two things that are totally distinct and have different rules. Okay, the alchemists talked about distillation of gold from lead. Now, Descartes would have been an alchemist. He would have practiced alchemy. It's a metaphor for the meditative process of discovering the differences between soul and matter, between extended substance and thinking substance, experiencing substance. The process was to place material in the alembic and slowly heat it until the distillation occurred. So they're looking at physical processes and using that as a metaphor, a guide for the meditative practice. We can compare it to yoga and the creation of heat tapas here. And that's specifically talked about in the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, in those sections there, if you want to go check that out. Okay? Key energy, classical mesmerism, all of these kinds of things, animal magnetism, personal magnetism. All of these things are related to this. All right, let me change the tape.